The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest live episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 344. And I've got an awesome guest for a Tuesday evening, one of the busiest pros on the UK scene. And we'll talk about that and why he is the current Southwest Wrestling Brit Pro Cup Champion, AXEL CARTER. AXEL, awesome to have you on the show. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm not doing too bad. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. Awesome to have you on. I know that we've had this in the works for a few months now, so great to have it finally happening. And yeah, we're going to have AXEL on the show for the next hour and 15, however long we go, taking a bit of a deep dive into his fantastic career. And he's really burst onto the scene in the last year or two. But believe it or not, this guy's been in the business for over 10 years. So we're going to talk about all of that. But before we take a deep dive with AXEL CARTER, just a quick reminder of some of my recent guests. And of course, this is the last guest of January 2024, and the year started with Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee came onto the show quite early into January, about the 4th or the 5th, and he was followed the week after by Tommy Lawrence, the Playmaker. Tommy Lawrence, of course, and then very recently we've had the BWR crew. Miles came and live on Wrestling with Johners, and last week we had the deadly one herself, Nightshade, as guest number 4 for January 2024. Looking at my lineup for February, which starts next week. On the 8th, I've got Jay Joshua. On the 12th, Scotty Rourke. On the 20th, I've got Alexis Falcon coming onto the show. And on the 29th, I've got the guys from United Wrestling. 4 fantastic live interviews. And as announced on my most recent live interview with Nightshade last week, my first guest of March was announced, Eddie Dennis coming onto the show. So an absolutely stacked February and March. More guests to be announced. But today, it's all about this guy here, the SWW Brit Pro Cup Champion. Now, I have to say that very, very carefully because I have stumbled across those words, Brit Pro Cup, in a backstage interview, but we won't go into that. But AXEL, I always like to hit my guests with some stats. Now, I've got some stats here. 2023. Now, you're welcome to correct me, but I think these are kind of mostly correct. 342 matches, 342 matches in one calendar year, 189 shows, all in the 12 months of 2023. That works out at nearly, one match a day in 2023. On average, nearly 2 matches per card that you appeared on. A crazy, crazy schedule. We're going to break it all down. But I'm guessing the busiest year in your wrestling career so far with some of them stats.
For sure. When I finished up 2022, I thought, I don't know how I'm ever going to top that. And I managed to do it. And I've set the bar again by trying to be busier this year. But I guess we'll see. We will see.
Absolutely. I'm just going to read them back. The staggering stats. Most pro wrestlers don't even have 342 career in their lifetime. 342 matches in one calendar year. Like I say, it works out to some tremendous stats, like 1 match a day, pretty much 2 matches per show that you appeared on. But I know that a lot of that would have been done maybe on the holiday camp circuit for Welsh wrestling. That's certainly a promotion that you are that you're very, very busy with. And I'm sure some of the summer seasons or school holidays, you're probably wrestling multiple times per day, dozens of times per week. Tell us about the schedule at your busiest in 2023.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Summer was probably the busiest I've ever been. And it would be trying to balance that with a real job as well. So it would be all the way through the week, Monday through to Sunday, sometimes with 2 shows in a day. On the Saturdays and the Sundays, so it was a hectic schedule, and not forgetting having to drive to the venues, put the ring up with the team, wrestle twice, taking the ring down, and then drive into the next venue. So yeah, it's a bit of a crazy schedule, but yeah, 6 weeks, starting right at the start all the way through to the end.
Absolutely. And in a 6-week summer holiday period, how many matches How many shows and how many matches do you think you'd have in a typical 6-week summer holiday?
Well, it was 6 weeks every day. I think we had maybe 2 days off in the entire time, and it was at least one show a day. I know the Saturdays and the Sundays we had 2 shows. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I've got another stat here, and going through your socials always gives me some interesting insight into my guest. But you wrestled 31 times in a 9-day period, and I think that post was at the beginning of June last year, so that must have been
Sure.
a summer holiday or another. But 31
Yeah.
times wrestled in a 9-day period. I mean, physically, you know, a lot of people that aren't wrestling fans might take for granted how grueling, how punishing, you know, it is on a wrestler, just one match, let alone 31 times in just over a week. How was your body after that period of time, after that stint in particular? You must kind of, I don't know, does your body just get used to it and you just don't feel it after a while?
I actually, I was, when you get into it in a schedule like that, I was not looking forward to my days off, because when I was having my days off, my body would go, oh, and then I would end up not looking forward to wrestling tomorrow because I'm like, it's all going to hurt. But if I was on that continuous cycle, then I could just go Monday through to Friday and I'd be absolutely fine. But yeah, I wasn't actually looking forward to days off. So yeah.
I bet. And so I bet there were, I mean, was there ever a weekend where you actually saw your family? I bet your family forgot what you looked like after a while, didn't
Yes,
they?
yes, we did. It was a lot of time away from home, a lot of time on the road, spending it with all the good guys, like getting to, like you said, wrestle for Welsh Wrestling. The team there are absolutely great. So it's like that's like a family away from my actual family. But yeah, after the summer holidays or the Easter holidays, February half term, you know, getting to see them, they were like, oh yeah, well, we forgot about you.
Get an extra seat round the table for
Yeah,
Axel.
yeah.
And so just on a lighter side, and I know we've spoken about this at shows when we've spoken backstage, and we kind of reminded ourselves of it before we went live. But you do have a shoot job. You do have a real Monday to Friday job. Now, we don't need to know what it is, but all I'm going to say is you must have a very, very understanding boss.
Yeah, I do work with a great team of guys, and the job is fairly flexible, but I obviously have to do very early starts sometimes to get in the amount of wrestling that I want to get in. So yeah, I'm very grateful for the job that I'm in at the moment, because it does go hand in hand with wrestling. I work for a sports nutrition company. I'm actually wearing it's Optimum Nutrition. Get lots of protein shakes, so I'm sorted out when I'm on the road, and yeah, it's a good job to have alongside wrestling. So very understanding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we briefly mentioned them earlier, but I'd say a lion's share of your matches from 2023 and maybe 2022 with this company here, Welsh
Yeah.
Wrestling, who you are very, very busy for. When did you first break in with them then? Because I did a bit of fact checking on them. And I mean, obviously, you think of your big touring companies and your big companies that hit all the holiday camps, like your all stars and your superstars of wrestling, and Welsh Wrestling, I think they label themselves as the biggest and busiest touring brand in Wales and the UK. So pretty big deal. Tell us about your history with those.
Well, it was actually the first time I wrestled for Welsh Wrestling. It was down in Chelsea, and it was straight out of COVID, where we actually had to wrestle while WWE music was played, because they didn't want the fans that we couldn't encourage them to clap or to shout. They only had to stamp their feet because of COVID restrictions, which was when I met Chris Recall and I met Red Nova for the first time. And I was introduced to the promoter of Welsh Wrestling through JD Knight, so I'm very thankful for that. And then it took off from there, and then ended up just being asked, can I do a show here and there? And because I was available, I said, yeah, why not? And it just took off from
Yeah.
there.
Absolutely. And like most touring brands that cover the holiday camp circuit, Welsh Wrestling in particular got a very, very strong family audience, always packed houses,
Yeah.
always put on really, really fun shows. And I think that's kind of, I'll use the word again, part of the fun and part of the reason why you enjoy working for that company especially.
Yeah. When you're in a job that you know you can go to work and have fun, and you don't have to worry about putting in like all like extreme amounts of effort. Like we go to these shows, like you said, they're packed out. They're beautiful theatres all over Wales. I've been to places, I've been north and south in Wales, been to some amazing places. Just the drives you do to some of these shows, and you know that every single show is either going to be sold out or extremely close to sold out. Is just the easiest job and the best job in the world then.
Yeah, absolutely. And although I'm talking to you today as AXEL Carter, we know you as AXEL Carter. Am I right in thinking that for Welsh wrestling under a mask, is that correct?
No, that's what a lot of people have thought. A lot of people have tried to
Ah,
guess that it was me, but no, I wrestle without the mask there. But there's Ricky Bambit in the mask. Haven't he hasn't been on a show for a while, but there's the American Patriot, Red Nova. They're also in masks. El Chaco as well. There was Grand Pierre, but yeah, no, without the mask, But
because I searched high and low for pictures of you in a Welsh wrestling ring and I couldn't find you. And I thought there's lots of pictures here with somebody in a mask. I thought that was you.
no, everyone, yeah, that's what they think. Everyone thinks, and they're trying to guess that it's me, but
At least
no.
I'm not the only one.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'll have to send it to you after. But there was proof. There was me with the Patriot and Checo in another photo from the summer just gone. So that's
Fair
all the
enough.
myth busted. So
Fair enough. I've heard rumours that those three individuals have never been seen in the same room together, but
no,
never mind.
100%. Yeah,
I'll take your word for it. I'll take your word
yeah,
for it.
yeah,
Let's talk a little bit about working the camp scene, and
Mhm.
especially working as many matches as you have with Southwest. I keep wanting to call it Southwest Wrestling with Welsh Wrestling. Of course,
yeah,
we'll talk about Southwest Wrestling a bit later on. But I mean, the grind and working that many matches, the repetitions. You know, I've spoken to a ton of wrestlers on this show over the last 5 years that have done the camp scene, the likes of Tucker, the likes of James Mason,
yeah,
Dean Allmark, and many more that I'm kind of clearly forgetting. But it can only be good, especially if you're a young, aspiring wrestler. You know, those repetitions, the grinds, the hard work, the putting the ring up, taking the ring down, traveling to the next town, time and time again. That can only be good for your career, can't it? And it can
yeah,
only be good
yeah.
for cutting your teeth and learning the business.
Yeah. No, I was blessed last year. I was doing a lot in the south of England, and I was on a team with it was me, Brandon Lee, Nathan Angel, and Kamikaze, and then we'd have different refs every week. But yeah, no, that was really fun, and to getting the experience all together is just amazing.
Yeah.
You can't compare it to any other kind of show, because you're taking people that have come in and they have no idea what wrestling is, and you can turn them into wrestling fans from that. It's how I became a wrestling fan, by seeing it live at a holiday park. So I mean, I think if I can take one person from being like I was, and I had no idea what wrestling was and didn't like it, into a super fan, then I've done a good job. So yeah, it's
That's
definitely the
it.
best.
Yeah, like I say, another name that I neglected to mention, but Joel Redman, and he explained
Yeah,
exactly the same. You know that
yeah,
quite often at these holiday camps, you're performing in front of non-wrestling fans. But if you
100%.
can
Yeah,
get, you know, the mum and dad to jump up on their feet and start clapping and getting the kids
yeah,
enthused, then you've done your job and you've won already, haven't you?
yeah. No, 100%, 100%.
And how do you feel that constant grind and repetitions of working so many dates with Welsh wrestling has benefited you the most in terms of your growth as a performer, your growth as an athlete and as a wrestler? How do you feel that you've benefited the most from that grind? And you said that you've been performing for Welsh wrestling just coming out of lockdown, so that's been what, two and a bit years now. How do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
think you've benefited the most?
Well, if you look at my stats pre-COVID, and I was wrestling once every other weekend, to
Hmm.
now every single weekend. I mean, you're never going to get good at something if you're doing it every now and then. It's more of a hobby when you're looking at it from that kind of standpoint. But if you want to make this an actual full-time thing, you've just got to get the reps in. really got to get the reps in. You know, it's like riding a bike. If you want to learn how to ride a bike, you can't do it once a month and expect to be able to be good at it. You have to be trying to ride that bike every single day, and you're going to fall off. You're going to have days where it's hard to ride that bike, but then after a while, you'll be pulling wheelies. So
absolutely. Now, at the top of the show, but of course we are live. We are live across Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and X. So if you want to get in touch with the show, if you want to get in touch, sending your questions to Axel Carter, you can do. Send them through to us using your chosen device, and we do our very best to bring up your questions and your comments live on air. We've actually had somebody reach out to us already. I think we're going to bring up this individual a bit later, but Alex Vaughan is watching us live via YouTube. Now, I know that the two of you have had your run-ins recently in SWW, and in particular, you know, their final show of the year in December, where he certainly kind of made a bit of a statement, beating up one of the referees, and then having an encounter with you in the Rumble to kind of close out the show. I don't think you two are set to face at the next show Fool's Gold. But I think that yourself and Alex have probably got an encounter coming somewhere down the line. Any words you'd like to say to Alex? He's put an emoji of a key there.
Yeah, well, let's see if he makes it through James Mason, because obviously if he doesn't make it through James Mason, then he's unfortunately gonna have to leave SWW. But if he does, then like I said, bring it on, you know, or I'm ready for it. If he wants to have a go for that, we'll go for that.
We'll talk more about Fool's Gold.
Oh, yeah, Fool's Gold.
Yeah, Fool's Gold. And you've got the Brill, James Ellis, next weekend, Sunday the 4th. And of course, you mentioned that Alex Vaughan, if Alex Vaughan loses, he must leave SWW against James Mason. We're going to talk a little bit more about James Mason a little bit later on. But another thank you, Alex, for getting in touch. Very, very menacing individual. I've certainly had my encounters with Alex backstage. Don't really want to repeat any of those anytime soon. But another massive highlight of yours from 2023. We have to talk about it. Look at that. Yeah. Mexico. Axel Carter going to Mexico. Now, I think you clarified before we went live that you went to Mexico for about 3 weeks in May 2023. Just going to flash up some pictures here. I think this was Mexico City and Arena Mexico, and packed houses, awesome action. You got the Mexican luchadors there, yourself and Sami Zayn. Like I say, on having to do a lot of catching of these tremendous athletes, a lot of diving going on. We'll talk about all of that. There you are in your Welsh wrestling t-shirt. And I think that's possibly Arena Mexico. And there you are backstage, sporting a bit of a tan as well.
It was very warm out there.
Tell us about the opportunity, getting the opportunity to go out there for them 2 or 3 weeks, because it's a bit of a once in a lifetime opportunity, probably a bit of a dream come true for yourself, but a different environment, a different wrestling landscape, different wrestling culture, tremendous fans. How did you find yourself out there?
So a little bit of a long-winded story, but it was initially through going to Mexico on a little bit of an excursion. Ended up watching wrestling at Arena Mexico, speaking to a guy called Magnus who works for CMLL, and basically falling in love with that style of wrestling. It's an amazing style of wrestling. I say to anyone, just give it a shot and kind of just be mesmerized by the stuff that those guys can do. Speaking to him a little bit, and when I first went out to Mexico, I gained a few contacts through a trainer out there called Dunkel, and spoke to Sammy, and he was kind of like, shall we go? And we booked a flight with no real confirmation that there was going to be any training or any shows. We showed up with some training, did a little bit here, did a little bit there, got picked up by a promotion out there, IWRG, and we ended up doing a Rumble for the first show we were on. Impressed them, and then they said, well, we've got 3 more shows we can get you on while you're out here. You're welcome. So, and we were in, I believe the second show was the main event of a packed house there. So yeah, it was an incredible experience.
So,
But
so
it
correct me
was
if I'm wrong. Did you just say that you went out there without any bookings? You just went out there on the hope
yeah,
that you might get a booking or
yeah,
two, and
yeah.
wow, that's
Yeah,
great.
just it was all just through research, just finding some training schools and speaking to Magnus, which is actually the original Sin Cara's cousin.
Right.
There's a little bit of trivia there, a little bit of a fact, and yeah, just speaking to him and saying, is this a good place to go? Is this going to lead anywhere? Training here, and he suggested a few places. Unfortunately, the CMLL school wasn't open at the time because they were still COVID testing. It's only just reopened, I believe. So yeah, no, we just went out there with absolutely nothing and just walked into training schools as two English guys, and they looked at us, and the first words they said were "gringo." And then we just jumped in there. And Sammy's an amazing athlete as well. Like, if you've ever seen him wrestle,
Hmm.
the guys out there, it's a complete different style. So they're a lot lighter, a lot smaller, and they would be impressed when I was doing some of the drills. And then when Sammy would go and completely blow it out the park, their jaws hit the floor, and it was amazing experience. But yeah, absolutely nothing booked in. That was just went straight out there. Yeah,
There's
I
yourself
believe that.
and Sammy there. I mean, I've been watching
Yeah,
Sammy for about 10 years, and I used to
yeah,
watch
yeah,
a fair bit of 4FW. I used to live and
yeah,
work in Swindon. Great guy, doing some wonderful things for Brit King Pro, of course. There you are, one of your very, very hot and steamy training
yeah,
sessions. And there's the crew there. The majority of them covering their face, as you would expect.
yeah, yeah.
But tell us, who's the guy in the picture?
So that was Dunkel. He's a slightly older luchador out there. He runs training at a school fairly close to the center of Mexico City. That ring there is probably one of the hardest and stiffest rings I've ever been in. No padding in the middle. It's all worn away. Ropes are as tight as, well, when you hit the ropes, you may as well be hitting a brick wall. So, but old school training. He loves old school lucha libre style. So that was really good to go and get that experience. Amazing trainer. So
Yeah. And there is some footage on your Instagram of yourself and Sammy going through some lucha drills.
yeah.
So you managed to pick up some lucha while you're out there. But let me ask you about the contrasting styles between, and I would probably class you as more of a technical wrestler. You got a few high spots in there, but more of a technical, grounded professional wrestler. And the contrast between that and the lightning quick, fast paced of the traditional Mexican lucha style. And there are matches available on your Twitter, which you can click on your YouTube, of course, where you can go and see you perform some of the matches over in Mexico. But the pace out there is just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. How did you adapt to that pace and the contrasting styles to start off with?
Well, we went out there with the knowledge that we were never going to be able to do their style better than them. So it was just the go and get the experience of doing that style, like pick little bits from there and put it, and so we can create like a little bit from here, a little bit from there. We'll take this from there, and like you said, there was a lot of catching involved because we like in American kind of standards or like British standards, we're not the biggest guys on the scene. I mean, Sammy's obviously a lot bigger than me. He's got a lot more muscle mass than me, but we were never going to fly around with those guys because they're a lot lighter, a lot faster, as you said. So we were like the basis for a lot of the drills that we were doing in training. And yeah, it was having to take a lot of dives during it and just basically going in with their style. And they love the British style as well, lots of technical wrestling. So they benefited from us being in there and doing bits with them. So yeah, it was definitely a huge contrast, especially the first show we did. The training's obviously different because you have little breaks in between training, but the first match was incredible because I thought I'm really out of breath and I've only done a couple of moves. What's this about? And then we were speaking to a couple of the guys after, and they said, "Oh, you haven't taken into consideration the altitude change." And I was like, "Oh, I never thought about that." And they were like, 2 weeks, and then you'll adjust. But yeah, being out there, it was horrible with the heat. Just it was almost like trying to breathe in like a steam room or a sauna. It was like that. So yeah, that was probably the hardest thing to adjust to.
Yeah, because it is a different type of heat and a different type of humidity to what you'll find over here in the UK or Europe. And I think you said that during some of your training it was like 28 degrees, but I'm sure it got hotter than that because Mexico is traditionally a very warm climate, a very warm country. And that, like you say, that was probably the most amount of adapting you had to do. But well, tell us a bit about the fans, because I'm sure they get talent from all over the world performing in Arena Mexico, talent from all over Europe, and maybe even some more Brits. But how did they take to yourself and Sammy? Did they get behind you? And tell us a bit about your experience of performing in front of the Mexican fans.
Initially, they got behind us, and then we formed a little alliance while we were out there with a wrestler named Shocker, and he is hated by them. So there was a lot of angry people at me and Sammy at the end of it, because we were very pro England, and we wanted to show them that the English and British style was the best style, and we didn't like Mexican style. But they're very vocal. They pay their money, and they wanna really enjoy the show. If you put on a show that was 5-6 hours long, they would sit through it because they have paid to be there, and they're going to be as loud at the start as they are at the end. It's incredible.
I don't think I've ever seen a heel AXEL CARTER before. I'll have to look out for that on the UK scene. But
like you said, there's a match, me and Sammy versus Ecstasies and Astro Boy, and those two very, very talented wrestlers. But we could have been booed out of the building with that.
You were hated.
Yeah.
And what would you say was coming out of that whole experience? A massive learning opportunity, fantastic, once in a lifetime thing. But what would you say probably was or maybe some of the biggest takeaways from that whole experience for you?
Probably don't drink tap water in Mexico City is
good point.
Was probably the biggest learning curve that Sammy will tell you, because he bless him, he did get very ill while we were out there, but powered through. We had the main event spot, so he turned up, and we didn't think he was going to make it through the match. He was that ill. But what was the biggest learning?
Have you brought back any techniques that have added into your repertoire?
There's different things in there, and I think I'm more relaxed as a wrestler just going in there, because obviously there was a language barrier, huge language barrier. A lot of them obviously don't speak English, or if they didn't like you, they would pretend they didn't know how to speak English. So it was going in there, and you just had to go wrestle, and just picking it up, doing it as you're in there. It's definitely, it is daunting to go in there and think, well, it's a completely different style. Are they going to sit on their hands and think, I hate this, or the fans? But no, it was just go in there and just be cool. You know what you're doing. You've been doing this for however many years now, and you got this. So definitely a lot more level-headed going into wrestling matches now. So.
Absolutely. And just a quick kind of service announcement to anybody watching live on Facebook Live. If you are watching live on Facebook Live, you want to send a question in, you can do, but try to go to streamyard.com/Facebook. The details are scrolling along the bottom of the screen. And the reason why is because it will then allow us to see your icon picture and your name when you send in a question via Facebook. Otherwise, it just comes up Facebook user, and I have to try and find out who sent in the question. But send in your question again, whoever sent in a recent question. Go to streamyard.com/Facebook. And AXEL, the place where I've seen you review the most, certainly in 2023, of course, is Southwest Wrestling.
Yes.
And as we mentioned, a company that you've performed for and with since December 2021, but also, a company where you had a bit of a sketchy win-loss record, certainly up until 2023. But for that first year and a half, you didn't win a single match, did you?
No, I was in there with some really talented guys, and just never got that win, never got the win. So it was all, like they say, it's all about the taking part. So
absolutely. But that wasn't, I'm guessing that was all part of maybe a bigger picture. I'm sure Pete had it all in hand and knew what he was doing with you, because April 2023 rolls around. and you have a match with a certain British wrestling legend, James Mason, and you get your first win in an SWW ring, but not only your first win, but the Brit Pro Cup. We obviously introduced you as a Brit Pro Cup champion. I'm going to flash up a picture now of you with that fantastic bit of silverware there. And there you are, very, very proud champion. I think I was backstage at the Watson Hall in Tewkesbury, the very same place where you won the cup. Not quite a year ago, but last April. But I mean, first of all, how was it to, or how does it feel to be the Brit Pro Cup champion? I don't know whether that's one of your first accolades, but certainly the only one you have currently, I believe.
Yeah, it's the only one I've got currently. It was an extremely proud moment, especially going in the ring with James Mason. Wrestled him a handful of times before, but obviously when it's for a cup, you've got a lot more riding behind the match. So it was actually an absolutely amazing experience just to perform with James Mason in that ring. And then obviously, like you said, for the cup it's taking it that one step higher. So, and
Absolutely.
like I said from the very start, I think I said it in the interview we did straight after the match, that I'll happily defend it against anyone. Like anyone that wants to step in the ring at SWW, bring it on.
Well, I certainly think Alex Vaughan has got one eye on that cup already, but he's got to get past you first. But I think, as a lot of people know, professional wrestling is kind of predetermined. It's, the winner and the loser is kind of, spoken about, organised backstage. But you didn't know you were winning that cup on the day, did you, Axel? You went out there. I don't know what you thought the outcome of the match was going to be, but when the referee counted to 3, that was complete news to you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know whether it was a little practical joke they wanted to try play on me or what, but that was a complete shock. I really didn't know that it was gonna go ahead, that kind of match. Like Pete said, "Oh, we're gonna give you a big match." He gave me that ultimate decision that if you don't win this match or don't turn up for this match and you're not here for this one, that's it. SWW, we can't have you just on this huge losing streak. We want some proper professionals here. We can't have someone that's losing all the time. So he said, in this match, this is it. It's almost like Alex Vaughan as well. If he doesn't win, then he's out of SWW. So it was either pick up your bags and go, or win the cup.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, and you did, and you had a tremendous match against James Mason. You came out the victor. You came out the new SWW Brit Pro Cup champion, and that was your first win in an SWW ring. And since then, there's been no stopping you. The following day, you beat Harrison Bennett at the Trinity Centre in Bristol. At WrestleVersary 3, you opened the show and you beat Country Big, and then in October, Dust Till Dawn Part 2. You beat the Canadian Kamikaze, former guest of the show, really, really fun guy. That was a tremendous match, a lot of laughs, a lot of fun. And then Nightmare Before Crimbo in December, the last show for SWW in 2023. And you put your cup on the line against Dan Splash. So, a nice series of matches, a nice mix of opponents there. Kind of cap off, I'd say, from April onwards, after winning that cup, there was no stopping you.
No, you're very right, and like you said, it's a huge range of opponents from Country Big, who's obviously got that big, hard hitting style, but he can really pick up the pace and really bring it when he needs to. And you've got more high flying and technical with Dan Splash, and like you said, Kamikaze, who if I don't think he was wrestling, he was wanting to sing the Canadian national anthem. I think maybe that was his downfall in the match, trying to just put Canada over the entire time. And if he focused on that, maybe he would have had a bit more of a chance. But
I think he was more interested in giving it to the crowd than actually taking you seriously as a competitor. You just rolled him up in the end and sent him packing.
You always got to be prepared for those things. That's the thing in wrestling, But Harrison Bennett as well, another great opponent. So I can't complain about any of the matches that I've been put in there with. And again, like you said, SWW this coming Sunday, you got James Ellis, another first as well. So Yeah,
Well,
I
tell
look
us a
forward
bit
to it.
about that, because James Ellis, former guest of the show here on Wrestling with Johners, and I think he had a massive breakout year in 2023, really branching out to promotions all over the UK, winning accolades and championships left, right, and centre. But will it be your first opportunity stepping through the ropes to face James? And
Yeah.
what are you expecting from the Brill?
Uh, Lots of people always do research on opponents and stuff like that, but I'd rather just let's just see what he's got on the night. You know, I want to just him raw, and then we'll just go at it. I don't want to come in with a game plan, because he could switch it up, because I've heard he wrestles and uses this a lot. A very smart wrestler. So I don't want to be going in there with a game plan, because he's probably already thought I'm going to come in there with a game plan. I'm just going to take him for how it is. But it will be the first time I'm stepping in the ring with him. Been on shows with him, but just never stepped in the ring one-on-one with him. So should
Yeah.
be really exciting.
Absolutely, I think the two of you, your styles are really going to mesh well, and I think
Yeah,
you're going to have a lot
yeah,
of chemistry together for sure. I want to just touch on Dan Splash a little bit, because that was my first time kind of seeing him in the flesh, and got to
yeah,
speak to him backstage and interviewed him. Really, really nice guy. But now I understand that the two of you both have a bit of history with 4FW, training, with Dave Sharp, of course. But that was your first match in a one-on-one kind of environment. You've tagged together, but you've
yes,
never
yeah.
faced one-on-one before. Considering your history kind of 4FW and training with them, and maybe wrestling on the same shows as Dan, I was surprised to hear that that was your first match with him one-on-one.
Yeah, no, I thought it happened before, but no, it hadn't happened before. It was first time wrestling. But like you said, tagged with him at CSF, and had a few. We were actually on a show called, well, it was a show at a festival called Woo Fest. We were tag team partners there, and yeah, never one on one with Dan, but he's always been, on the same kind of shows, like you said, SWW. We got CSF.
Yeah.
He's been about for a very long time. So I was excited to step in the ring with him, because again, very good technical wrestler. And yeah, at the end, it was good to shake hands and say, thanks for bringing it in there. You can always step up with people like that. So yeah, no,
Absolutely.
good one.
Yeah, really experienced pro, and like I say, it was a delight to see the two of you in the ring together. And you mentioned them very briefly there. CSF, a
Yeah,
local promotion to me. I live in the same neck of the woods as to where they perform on a regular basis. But you've got a bit of a rich history with CSF, another promotion similar to SWW that you perform for on a semi-regular basis, and you've had a good amount of success and some interesting opponents over the years. But tell
yeah.
us a little bit about your journey with them, because they're a promotion that I haven't spoken about an awful lot on Wrestling with Johners over the years, but you have a bit of a history with them, don't you?
Yeah, no, they were that CSF was the first ever paid for wrestling show that I went to. The first wrestling show that I went to was in Butlins Minehead. The only two people I can remember on that show would be James Mason and Little Legs, and that was what got me into wrestling. Thank you to Little Legs for doing that.
Great guy.
But
Great guy.
yeah, we saw an advert in the local paper for live wrestling, and thought, okay, this is about 20 minutes away from where I lived, in Yate Leisure Centre, and went along, and yeah, that was it. That was the addiction to wrestling, hook, line, and sinker. I was well and truly in it then, and then the majority of the shows that I used to watch for CSF would be in the Winter Gardens Pavilion in Weston-super-Mare, and I always dreamed of wrestling in there. It was always one of those bucket list venues, bucket list things to do. And then I believe they took a big break from having wrestling in that venue, and then just recently I got the chance to tag in there with Simon Miller against Bane and Gilligan Gordon, which was a very, very fun match. So two great opponents, and a great tag partner with Simon Miller. So it was yeah, it was one of those that during the tag match I was like, wow, I never thought being sat in that front row would ever lead to me being still in this apron now. So yeah, a real kind of surreal moment with that. So good bucket list one to tick off.
I think that was also the same show that Scott Garland, Scotty Too Hot, he performed on, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
yeah, yes, he was on that. He wrestled Lance Cole on that show.
Brilliant,
So
absolutely fantastic.
great.
Another kind of highlight, well, not necessarily a highlight, but something that really jumped out at me for your 2023. Once again, checking your social posts, and that is that you're quite proud of the improvement and the development that you've put into your physique. Now, I've got a picture here, and I think not necessarily, I don't know how far apart these two pictures are, but certainly the picture on the right is showing a lot more bulk, a lot more definition there. And I think, let's be honest, I think you've always had a good physique, and you've always kind of enjoyed going to the gym, working out and working on your physique. But you've put in maybe some different work in 2023 that's got you to where you are now.
Yeah, but the kind of the mentality in the Welsh wrestling locker room is you have to look like a wrestler, you have to look like a superstar, and those two photos there, I believe, it was at the start of the summer and to the end of the summer, and that was all thanks to the Dragon Kid Cymru. He's if you look at him on socials on Instagram, he will do he's got a kind of more of a fitness page as well, and that was just following his guidance, and like that was doing it over the 6 weeks holiday where it's a busy schedule as well. So yeah, no, props to him for kind of pushing me in the right direction, and all the guys in Welsh wrestling that were there. And I was training with JD Knight at the same time as well in the gym, so really putting some hours in. And yeah, it was just hard work. I kind of got a bit put off by the shape of my own body, and I was like, I need to do something about this. I have to look like a wrestler if I'm going to call myself a professional wrestler. You need to look professional, so I needed to step the game up. So yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I've always enjoyed going to the gym, so always enjoyed it.
Let me ask you a bit about your wrestling fandom now, because we spoke a bit off air, and I think it was kind of established that you've been a lifelong wrestling fan. There's pictures on your Instagram of you as a teenager actually meeting some of your heroes, the likes of Shawn Michaels there, and the Hulkster at a convention. But that kind of led me to believe that wrestling has always been a big part of your life, and as a fan as well, before getting into the business. Tell us about some of the things that really pulled, and maybe even as a younger fan, and what kind of really turned you on to pro wrestling.
Well, like I said, the first ever show that I watched was would have been an all-star show in Butlins in Minehead, and then I used to watch wrestling on YouTube. I begged my dad to get Sky Sports, but he never caved in. So I used to walk to the local leisure centre in the area that I lived at the time, and they used to show on a Sunday morning. There was like I think it was maybe a SmackDown and Raw recap or something like that. And I used to sit there and watch that for an hour. And it was lots of live events that I used to go to. So CSF, and then when I found out about 4FW, obviously online, I used to go and watch them when they were at the Grange Drive in Swindon. And I was always a fan of wrestling, and then it just grew and grew and grew. And like you said there, I got that was I think the Hulk Hogan was Body Power, like a bodybuilding expo. So, and he was there, and we saw Jimmy Hart. He was on one of the booths, and he basically said, go to this booth at this time before they tell everyone that Hulk Hogan's going to be at this booth. And we were front of the queue. It was me and a friend from college, and I went and met the Hulkster. So yeah, that was surreal meeting him. So that was one of them that obviously I really fell in love with in terms of wrestling and watching on YouTube and bits and pieces like that. So yeah, I was always a fan of old school style wrestling as well. So whatever currently was on TV, I was never really that interested in. It was always, from years gone by, the larger than life characters and all the crazy storylines and bits and pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned there that you used to go and see a lot of live wrestling, indie wrestling, and you mentioned one or two groups there, and I think Attack and Chaos and 4FW and, you know, promotions like that. CSF were kind of promotions that you would go to and watch. And I was quite impressed that even from an early age, you kind of knew about indie wrestling, and it was indie wrestling that kind of had a massive place in your heart from a young age.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I got to thank my my mother for that, because she was the one that spotted the CSF advert in the local newspaper. Otherwise, then I was a fan of it, but up until that point, I didn't know that live wrestling in my local area even existed. I thought it was just going to be at Butlins in Minehead, and they did used to bring the WWE shows there, and I know we went a couple of times. I can't remember the exact time period, but I think the first wrestling show was maybe 2005, 2006 that I saw. So been a fan for a very long time, and yeah, a lot of live wrestling. So, but that's where you really can fall in love with wrestling, when you get to see it up close and personal, and you know, you really get to see up and coming stars, and it's not drawn out for TV. It's literally just you're there to watch wrestling, and you can feel the passion of the other fans. And yeah, it's I always encourage people that if they've never seen live wrestling before to come and watch it, because it's a different experience live than it is watching it on TV or on YouTube in my case.
Well, absolutely, and like I say, we've all kind of, you know, followed that route of going down the rabbit hole on YouTube and learning more and more. But now, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that this year marks 11 years in the business for you. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, 11 years now. So it was my first ever training session was the day after Valentine's Day in 2013. I remember it snowed, and the training unit was held in a bigger unit that had multiple units inside, and pretty much all of them had flooded apart from the wrestling unit, and it was so cold. I remember if you stopped, you'd start shivering. And as a very young kid, I remember going to school the next day and thinking I didn't know that there was parts of my body that could hurt this bad. And yeah, it was quite an experience.
You would have been maybe what, 14, 15 at the time, so very young, kind of, you know, them early training sessions, learning the ropes. During your kind of formative years, maybe 14, 15, 16 years old, how would you kind of describe yourself as a wrestler back then? Had you found a style, or what sort of style was you trying to emulate? I'm guessing it was totally different to the Axel Carter we know nowadays.
Yeah, well, I always thought I would end up as being like a high flying kind of guy, because obviously you've still got a lot of growing when you're that young, maybe 13, 14, that kind of age. So you think, oh, I'm going to be a high flyer, and then I kind of put in my mind that because I hurt so much after that first wrestling session, I thought I need to start going to the gym, because if I have more muscle on me, I won't hurt as much when I'm taking bumps or taking moves and like doing all these drills. So that was like the kind of main inspiration for me to get in the gym and really try and work on my physique as well, and work on my strength. But back then I didn't really have a clue. I was just trying to find my feet with everything, and everything's so new, and you're worried about like rolling the right way and getting up the right way and doing bits and pieces the right way, that a style I hadn't even thought of back then. So
that's it, just learning the basics. And just a picture, I'm not sure at what age this was, but a very young, long-haired Axel Carter, kind of contemplating his future stardom as a pro wrestler. But a couple of things that really stood out to me, certainly, you know, the first 4, 5, 6 years in the business, was the color pink. And it was from the knee pads to the boots to the trunks to the tights to the everything was pink. And like I say, you think of legendary tag teams, the Hart Foundation or Bret Hart in his solo career. You know, pink is quite a famous, popular wrestling color. And it was your wrestling color back in them years, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, the whole pink idea came from that not many people at the time in British wrestling were wearing pink, and I thought, well, you got to stand out. I remember when I was working with one company, they had Shane Douglas over, and he said, you have to think of wrestlers like ice cream. If you're vanilla, everyone will like you. You know, you're not really pushing any boundaries, but sometimes you have to be mint choc chip to stand out. You'll have a lot of people that they like that niche, but he said, go for it, start wearing pink, just be different. You got to stand out, because people will remember a guy in pink pants than if there was 10 guys in black pants and there was one guy in a pair of pink pants. They're more likely to remember the guy wearing the pink. So yeah, I just embraced the pink.
Absolutely, and it kind of it suited you. It had a good look, especially with the tan. I thought the tan and the
Yeah,
pink
yeah,
go really, really well together.
yeah.
But a couple of individuals I'm going to mention now, just going through your socials, and there was a picture of yourself with Jake Hager, possibly following a 4FW show, and a picture of you maybe watching from ringside of a Ken Anderson seminar. So obviously, two individuals that you probably encountered either at a seminar or at a show for FW. Did you work any of those? Did you work Jake Hager?
No, I didn't. I didn't get to work with him. It was just a pleasure of being around him. I'm not actually sure. I can't remember exactly who he wrestled that night. Potentially Tiger Ali, or
More
maybe
than
Jake
likely,
that night. Yeah,
yeah.
it would have been one of those two, I expect. So yeah, no. He was an amazing, funny guy to be around as well. 4FW also, when they brought in Ryback as well, had the pleasure of being around him. Cody Rhodes as well was a funny one. He managed to spill 2 cans of Diet Coke all in my Nissan Micra at the time. So yeah, it was no, I have been very blessed with getting to kind of rub shoulders with some amazing guys that are obviously in very high up places, whether it be WWE or TNA or AEW or wherever they may be. So yeah, no, it's Jake Hager was a really fun guy though, really fun.
Absolutely, like two of you are having a blast in the photograph that I
Yeah,
spotted. Another individual that you encountered and rubbed shoulders with, and actually kind of, had a bit of time, a bit of interaction in the ring, and that's two-time WWE Hall of Famer, the legendary, sadly departed Scott Hall, and
yeah,
he was over here in the UK now. I think probably from 7 or 8 years ago now, and I've got a very grainy screenshot of you just after you'd sent the heel pack in. There you are
yeah.
in the infamous pink once again, and there is the unmistakable figure of Scott Hall there, as he kind of puts you over in the ring. Tell us a little bit about that, because you would have been a teenager at the time,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure. He would have been over here probably on one of his last tours, and just another unforgettable experience, another unforgettable individual, and you had the pleasure of having that interaction with him.
yeah. No, he was a great guy as well. Really chilled out and was talking to everyone, and like he just came and sat in the dressing room with all the guys, and like he was just so chilled out. And anyone that wanted to speak to him, he would happily have a conversation with, giving advice to different people. And the first thing he said to me, so he said, "Oh, I can't call you Axel." He said, "I got to call you Owen because I had the long hair and the pink." He was just like, "You look too much like Owen Hart. I can't not see it." So yeah, no, really cool guy, really really nice guy as well. And yeah, like you said, unfortunately, no longer with us. But yeah, no, he was amazing to be around. And actually, finding that photo you found was almost the proof that I needed that I was wearing Zubaz a long time before a lot of the guys are wearing it now. That's like proof. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And let's just see where I am in my. So, like I say, we've spoken about kind of your formative years, your first 4, 5, 6 years in the business, and I mean, coming out of lockdown now, and it almost like we got a different Axel Carter from 2021 onwards compared to what we had in the several years before that. Did you find that having that time away from the business, out of the business, gave you time to kind of reflect and maybe mature, think about come back, or maybe think about what sort of Axel Carter we wanted going forward, coming out of lockdown? Give us your kind of thought process coming out of lockdown, and it certainly did appear that we had a different wrestler on our hands from 2021 onwards.
I'm glad you said that as well, because like you said, there was a lot of thinking time, and I think for a lot of people as well, not just in
Mm,
wrestling, there was a lot of downtime people had. And I remember waking up one day and I was just thinking about wrestling, and obviously when a show's going to be back on, when are we going to be out of this kind of whole predicament that we were in. And I said to myself, if I'm going to be a wrestler, I have to make wrestling my priority in life. Like, if I'm going to do it, I've just got to put everything into it. And any shows that I can be on, whether it was just turning up to help or like set up the ring or do whatever, I just needed to completely immerse myself in wrestling if I was going to do anything with it. And yeah, no, I'm very glad that you can see that there was a huge step up from pre-COVID to where we are today. So no, and I pride
Absolutely.
myself on that. So
Yeah. Let's jump to some questions and comments that have come through since we've gone live. And thank you to everybody that took my my guidance on board. They've gone to streamyard.com/Facebook, and I can actually see their lovely pictures and Facebook handles. We got Matty Hawkins watching us live via Facebook. Thank you, Matty, for watching and reaching out. Hi guys, Axel, which wrestlers coming through the ranks you've seen that as fans need to keep an eye on this year? So I know that there's a lot of really excellent training schools out there, and a fantastic crop of young through all over the south and the southwest, and let's be honest, all over the UK. Any that have really caught your eye that we should kind of go out and kind of do our research on, or keep an eye on in 2024?
yeah, no, I've mentioned them before, but obviously Brandon Lee and Nathan Angel,
Yeah.
Kamikaze that's now back in Canada, but I'm sure he'll make his return. Anyone from that All-Star South school, you're gonna have to keep your eyes on, because Joel is their trainer, and Bullet and Niwa, they're gonna just produce some amazing talent out of there. Um, Anyone from the Welsh wrestling scene as well, they're always brilliant shows to come along to. Who else? Ripper Reed as well. Amazing talent. Obviously, just coming back from Japan. Great guy, great talent. And I know he's getting in the reps with Mega Slam at the moment. So yeah, definitely any of those guys or any of the places that I've mentioned, you as a fan, you won't be disappointed.
Absolutely. And an individual you may be familiar with, we got Hammerhead Smith Jr. Don't know if he's an individual you're familiar with. Talking of
Yes, yeah.
Brit Pro Cup, Axel knows firsthand that I come from a world of sport background, and what history me and himself have over the years. So Hammerhead versus Carter, Johners for the Brit Cup is a must see. And I'm guessing from what Hammerhead Smith Junior there is saying, the two of you have had your encounters over the years, and
Yeah.
he'd like to throw his hat into the ring for the Brit Pro Cup.
Yeah, we've a lot of history, me and Hammerhead Smith Jr. We actually wrestled, I believe it was 2 weeks ago now, and he's really stepped up his game as well. Really stepped up from the last time I was in the ring with him. I believe that was pre, or maybe, yeah, pre-COVID one-on-one. So yeah, wow. If it's going to be booked, like I said, I'll wrestle anyone. So if the people want to see Hammerhead versus Carter, I'll put the Brit Cup on the line. I got no problem with that at all.
There we go. You heard it here first. And we got Richie watching us live via YouTube. Axel, what wrestlers would you like to face this year in 2024? So, like a lot of wrestlers, they kind of start the year with a bit of a bucket list, a bit of a tick box exercise. But I'm sure you've thought about any that you may not have faced that you'd like to in 2024.
Anyone, I'll wrestle absolutely anyone. I wouldn't ever. So I would love to step back in there with Ripper, since he's come back from Japan. Um, who else? Who else? I've never had a one-on-one with Ricky Bamba. Yeah, I would love to do that one at Welsh Wrestling, and El Chaco as well would also be a good one to throw in the mix, because obviously his Mexican style, and not being training in Mexico, would be a brilliant one. But like I said, anyone, I'll wrestle absolutely anyone, and I love learning different styles, like coming in there with different guys. That's the bread and butter of wrestling, like going in there and just learning and immersing yourself in it. So absolutely anyone.
There we go. Great answer. Great answer. And speaking of anybody, I know we touched on this before we went live, but I know you've got a bit of a rich history with JD Knight. And I know two of you go way, way back. He may well have been one of your early trainers in 4FW. I'm not sure, but I know that the two of you have had your encounters up and down the road for various promotions over the years. And I think I may have incorrectly said that he's probably one of the people you've wrestled the most, and that may or may not be accurate or not. But JD Knight, certainly somebody that's maybe a fond part of your wrestling history, and maybe a bit of an influence on you as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. He was obviously in 4FW when I was going to watch as a fan, and yeah, he was there all the way through when I was training. And 2022, I believe I would have wrestled him the most amount, which was, he was the kind of guy that said, if you're going to kind of pick it up and you want to be a pro wrestler, you need to start wrestling like a pro, putting yourself in situations where you're amongst pros. And we had some really good matches throughout 2022. Didn't wrestle him as much in 2023, but yeah, 2022 we were all across the country, and had some really, really good matches with him. Really good matches.
Yeah, he's a proper pros pro as well, isn't he? And so experienced, massively underrated. Deserves to be in more places, but he's got so much experience that he can kind of share that knowledge with the younger talent, like he has done with yourself. And before we ask you for your socials and kind of wrap up this really, really fascinating interview with AXEL CARTER, let me ask you about some of your proudest moments. Now, we know you've had a tremendous 2022 and even better 2023 and a very, very busy 2023, and you kind of stepped in the ring with a lot of top names and rubbed shoulders with legendary figures within the business, but what are some of your maybe one or two or maybe even three proudest moments of your career to date?
Like I mentioned before, getting to wrestle in the Winter Gardens, and just looking back on 2023, that made me proud of the amount that I was wrestling, and the fact that I never let anyone down. I never pulled out of a show, even though I could have been hurt or I was ill. I always showed up and just put in 100%, even when I wasn't feeling 100%. I think that's the main thing, that you just got to be reliable, and that's one of the things that I was always told, mainly through JD Knight, but guys, the referee Alan Anderson always told me, if you're reliable, you're gonna get work. So that was one of the proud moments, that I was a guy that people could rely on to be there, whether it be wrestling or a ring hire or whatever I was kind of booked to do, then I'd be there. So that's what made me proud. So
yeah, great answer, really great answer. And before we throw to your socials, just a quick reminder, this is the last interview of January 2024. We've had a fantastic lineup, really stacked lineup of guests, including AXEL CARTER in January. But February kicks off next week with Jay Joshua coming onto the show live on the 8th of Feb. The 12th of Feb, I've got Scotty Rourke. And on the 20th, I've got Alexis Falcon, and the 29th, the guys from United Wrestling will be coming onto the show. All of these interviews live and exclusive on those dates. And of course, some fantastic artwork from Elliot93. Thank you very much, Elliot. Helps me out when I don't feel capable of doing the graphic design for really, really big guests like Alexis Falcon on the 20th of Feb. And as I mentioned earlier, Monday, the 4th of March, my first guest for the month of March has already been announced. Eddie Dennis will be joining me live on Wrestling with Johners. And that's my first guest for March. So a really, really stacked February to look forward to. And March is shaping up with some tremendous guests, including Eddie Dennis there. But AXEL, before we say our farewell, it's just an opportunity for you to throw out to any of my viewers, my listeners, where they can reach out to you on your social medias and get to learn more about AXEL CARTER, or just reach out and say hi, but where can they do so?
So I'm mainly active on Instagram, which is the AXEL CARTER. I do have an X or Twitter for the old Twitter users. I don't use that as much, but that is real AXEL CARTER. On YouTube, if people want to catch up with any of the matches I've managed to upload, or any Welsh wrestling show, you can come and find me there. CSF, SWW, like you said before, they're the kind of the main places you can find me, because I prefer stuff in real life. Come and talk to me at a wrestling show. You know, we can bond over wrestling rather than through social media. So
absolutely, very well said. But if you've got any final words for my viewers, my listeners out there, to sign us off this episode of Wrestling with Johners from Axel Carter, any final words that you'd like to throw out to my audience out there on Wrestling with Johners?
I think we've covered it all, really. Just if everyone keeps supporting local independent wrestling, and we'll all be in a really good place with it. Like, keep supporting shows. If you're a wrestler, keep training, get as much experience as possible. And I'd just like to thank you for having me on. I don't really do these kind of things, and it's been a very fun experience. So thank you if you're doing it as well.
No worries. I don't want to get rid of you just yet, because one thing that I've neglected to mention, and you also got ring hire as well. So
yes,
for anybody who might be interested in hiring a ring, this is the man to speak to. Tell us about it.
Yeah, if any of you are running wrestling shows, I do have a wrestling ring. I know on the podcast the live interview you did with James Mason, we share a lot of jobs, but yeah, me and him keeping the wrestling ring hire companies. You know, we're always out there setting the rings up, taking them up 6-7 flights of stairs, and really grafting away. But yeah, no, that's more of a business side of things through just booking me. So yeah, if anyone needs a wrestling ring, they can contact me. So that would just be through more my like private Instagram, private Facebook, rather than but yeah,
absolutely. And I'm going to bring up a couple of pictures before we say goodbye. There you are with the SWW Brit Pro Cup. And of course, your next match just around the corner next Sunday, the 4th of February, against the Brilliance, James Ellis, at SWW Falls Gold from the Trinity Centre in Bristol. But I just want to say, Axel Carter, it's been a delight speaking to you on episode 344 of Wrestling with Johners. And yeah, we'll see you at the shows, my friend.
See you then. Thank you.
Take care.